See, there's something within us that wants to leave a legacy. But here's the thing you need to know is if God asks you to do something, don't look at the size of the job, look at the size of your God who asked you to do it. See, he laid down his life for you, so that tells me that you are not worthless, you are worthy. And this is what he wants to rewrite into your story. That reality impacts everything.
Hey, small groups, thanks for tuning in for another week of discussion. And I'm just so glad you're watching this, and I'm really glad you'll be able to kind of digest this and discuss this with some friends. My prayer is that your time together, your conversation is rich and rewarding. I pray that you're open-minded to what God may speak to you. And I actually pray that you're open-minded to what God may have you speak to each other. And so this week, we are talking about money. This past weekend, we kind of continued our series called Master Your Money. And this week, we were talking about giving back to God. And what we said is that it really is a matter of faith, and that giving to God reveals your faith. It's all about trust. And specifically, we talked about bringing your tithe to God. Tithing is giving God your best and giving God your firsts. It's kind of like me with steak. This past weekend, I talked about when I grill up a big old plate of hot, juicy steaks, I just want to give my wife the first one, and I dig around for the best one. If I got like a burnt up one, I give that to the kids. I know that sounds funny, but I want to give my wife my best and give my wife the first. And it's the same way with God. Giving to God a tithe is really giving God the first of what we have and giving God our best. And we looked at how Scripture, all through Scripture, teaches that the tithe is 10%. We looked at where God commands through Moses to the Israelites in his law how to give God of our first fruits and even the firstborn in their flocks and in their families. We looked at before the law, before there was a Moses, God expected this of Abraham, and before that, he expected this from Cain and Abel. And then even in the New Testament, that Jesus kind of affirms the tithe, says that we should do that, and Paul teaches the same idea of percentage-based giving. So all through Scripture, we see that this is something we should give to God our best and our first, and really kind of a 10% thing. I was really lucky to be raised in a family of tithers. And they taught me to be a tither. They actually made me practice tithing. So if I mowed my grandpa's lawn and got $10, I was expected to give $1 to church. And I'm so happy that I was raised that way because it just kind of felt normal. My wife, not at all. So when we got married and we talked about, hey, we should be giving 10% of all we make to God. And we should be giving to God before anything else, any other bills. That was really hard for my wife to kind of get her mind around and really hard for her to want to do. And so that took some time, and that was a tough thing. My guess is you might be on either end of that extreme or somewhere in the middle. And so as you talk with your group, I would love for you guys to be able to talk about what did you grow up with? What did you see modeled and expected on you as far as giving back to God? And how do those ideas hit you now that you kind of have your own stuff and make your own money? And it's so much harder when you grow up and you try to start doing that. So I'd love for you to talk about that. And then I just want to challenge you to be brave enough to really talk openly and honestly about how you guys decide to give and why you guys decide to give. And I pray that your small group is a safe, healthy place that you guys can have that really good conversation. I've just had the privilege. God has been able to bring a lot of conversations about this my way. And I'm so thankful. The different people, different families that I've been able to talk to, and a lot of people have kind of the same questions. I just love it when people come with open and honest hearts, wanting to know what God says. And so I've been a part of a bunch of conversations where several times people will ask questions like, should I tithe before I pay my taxes or after I pay my taxes? Many people have kind of wrestled with the idea of, does the New Testament really teach 10%? Does a tithe have to be 10%? And these are just great conversations that you guys can have in your small group. Some people have even told me things like, man, I just didn't know that. I didn't know better. No one's ever told me that. I've never heard that. And I pray that you have a heart that wants to hear what God has to say and obey Him. And so as you have a chance to just have open and honest conversation with each other, I pray that God uses that to stir in your hearts and to encourage one another in awesome ways. And so as you get ready to talk, let me just encourage you that as you talk in your small group, that you wouldn't be afraid of asking any questions. There's no bad questions. And so, man, I hope that you're brave enough to just ask whatever you've got. Don't be afraid to share honestly about wherever you're at, however you've handled money. We're not looking to judge anyone. We're not looking to shame anyone. We're looking for a really helpful conversation. And if you sense God calling you to do anything, to take any kind of next step, I just want to challenge you to be brave and to step up and trust God in that. You will be so glad that you did. I really believe that God uses giving as one of the greatest ways for us to show our faith and to grow our faith. And so as you guys talk about this in your group, I pray that exactly happens, that it becomes a practical way for you to show your trust in God and to have your faith grown as you follow God. I actually like talking about this. I know it seems like an uncomfortable subject, but it's not because I want to just shove God's truth at people, or I'm trying to raise extra money for the church. But it's because I really believe that when we start to honor God with our finances, when we start to bring our tithe to God, that opens up His blessings upon our life and upon our finances. And so I get excited trying to help people understand what God says and how to live it out because of how it will bless your life. So I pray that you have a great conversation and that it's blessed by God. We'll see you next time.